Tough as Nails is back for season number 5. We're ready for a big season of Tough as Nails. Thank you to Will from America for the theme song to Tough as Nails. And it is funny that we've kind of come full circle where Tough as Nails once upon a time was the only news show that's on TV. And I mean, we're sort of in a different sort of era than where we were 3 summers ago, where the writer's strike has brought us Tough as Nails, maybe a little bit early and twice as fast, but here we go, baby. And so let's bring in our Tough as Nails panel back once again. Here back with us, of course. She's tough and she's ready to go. It's Jessica Liese. Jess, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rob. It's a little bit worrisome that I'm the toughest person on this podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
you're not going to argue with me.
No. Yeah. So happy to have you back here for season number 5. And of course, with us once again, it's give it up for Mr. Mike Bloom.
I would prefer it if you please refer to me as the PCOTB at this moment, the podcaster on the block.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. Well, Mike, welcome back to another season of Tough as Nails.
Yeah, happy to be here. I was a little mystified by your introduction. I thought, okay, is Rob pulling a first challenge here and going very heavy metal with his voice? Who would have thought this is the new attitude to bring into?
I'm raging against the machine that's kept Tough as Nails away from us for too long.
Yes, we're going to have a sodding good time today.
Well, we needed some Tough as Nails people to fix the machine before we could go on.
Yeah. So we're ready to go here, and it's going to be a little bit of a unique season of Tough as Nails in terms of the release. We got on Sunday night a 2-hour premiere of Tough as Nails, and then after that, we are going to then shift into a Friday night and Sunday night. They're going to bookend your weekend with Tough as Nails. Get it started on Friday night, and then come home to Tough as Nails on Sunday. And then we're going to work on bringing you the podcast recaps on Monday. Where did we last leave off with Tough as Nails? Was that in January of this year?
We're all furiously going to Wikipedia because we do not.
Yeah, no, it was February. It was late February because I remember it aired in the Wednesday night slot before Survivor ended up premiering. So that being said, it is a little wild. Talk about things being topsy-turvy, Rob, that once upon a time, Phil's other show, Amazing Race, aired 2 seasons a year. Now it's Tough as Nails airing 2 seasons a year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's it's here. It's in July. Basically, we're gonna get 5 weeks of Tough as Nails here. At the lead up to Big Brother, as we are going with an all reality summer here on CBS.
Yeah, the schedule has yet to be rolled out, though, Rob. You just wait with bated breath, right, to find out how much caffeine you have to invest into for what CBS has planned for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, the hits keep coming, and so all right, Tough as Nails is here, and then the commercials were all like The Challenge, Big Brother, like they're really getting us hyped up for a big summer here, at least on RHAP. I don't know.
It's almost as if they don't have people to write scripts.
Yeah. So we've got a lot to talk about here. Mike, this is a season that is now for the first time we have taken Tough as Nails on the road. And interestingly, we've gone north of the border.
Yeah. So we, I suppose, have left the nail in California and we moved on to the hammer. Hamilton, Ontario is where we are going to be situated for season 5. So, I mean, listen, Survivor has offered Canadian citizens to apply ever since season 39. But I don't know a show that has fully embraced its internationality as much as Tough as Nails has done in its singular season so far, considering it is filming in Canada and it has now brought in a third of its cast as Canadian as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought you were going to say, Mike, that Survivor said that they should do every season of Tough as Nails in Fiji.
Oh, now that would be interesting. I mean, listen, Phil talked about how it was a scorcher that day. I think these people would probably collapse from heat stroke, beast mode cowboy style, by the end of the first couple of challenges if they're having to wear those like heavy coveralls and firefighter uniforms in the Fijian heat.
No, they wouldn't, Mike, because they're tough. Like,
yeah,
I think all of these people would literally die before they passed out.
Yeah, well, that's a trademark of Tough as Nails. People are going to be putting themselves into very precarious positions. Jess, I know you're getting ready for another season of The Amazing Race Canada. Were you excited to see Tough as Nails come to Canada?
Well, one of the things that made me really excited about Tough as Nails coming to Canada is the fact that bringing Canadians in means we have a much higher probability of getting that low-key deadpan Murph-esque energy.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there's one thing I know from recapping 8 seasons of Amazing Race Canada, it's that this is a very common demeanor in Canada. In fact,
Canadians have big Murph energy.
big Murph energy. In fact, Dan Heaton has an impression that he trucks out every season, and it's the same impression, but it applies to a different character every season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's like many of us that do impressions.
It's economy. I get it. I get it.
Yeah. We can't really be jack of all trades. We can't be a Kenji when it comes to impressions. We have a very limited scope when it comes to voices to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, Mike, I know you also got the chance to talk to Phil, and maybe we'll have a chance to talk to him on the podcast at some point this season. But what were your takeaways from talking with Phil about the new season of Tough as Nails?
Yeah, so let's talk about the reason for the season and the change in location. So Phil had said that actually they have been shopping around alternate locations for a while now. They basically said that filming in California for so long was mostly due to COVID protocols, that they didn't necessarily want to have to worry about filming a whole ass show while also dealing with COVID protocols in an entirely different state and putting everything on the road. So once things have loosened up a bit more, they started shopping around. They started going to a bunch of American cities initially, like Pittsburgh, Chicago, etc. And then somebody pitched Hamilton, Ontario, and they realized that much like California, this was a very diverse location in terms of different types of workforces. And especially, as our celebrity cameo will tell us, it seems like the perfect Tough as Nails type of town, considering the blue collar affinity to it. And so they decided that they were going to pack things up and shift north of the border. And for what it's worth, I think it threads that perfect needle of like very much establishing the fact that it's in a different location, but like I haven't necessarily noticed anything to make it be like, not my Tough as Nails. We need it back in California. It seems like it's pretty much filling in the same holes that California did, which is good for the show.
Yeah, I suspect they filmed this in the summer. You said how hot it was, so we're not really like leaning into the location of like, okay, we're going to Canada and we're gonna have like more cold weather tasks. Although, like a lot of these like Tough as Nails challenges, I feel like that we've seen like, all right, it's first thing in the morning in January in California, and it's like 40 degrees out.
Yeah, though again, that would be an advantage for the Canadians. How many times were these people talking about like, yeah, I worked out and I'm doing my job in negative 30 degrees Celsius. So again, they would have been built for it. They're literally more cold-blooded than we are.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Oh, could that be thematically true also, Mike?
I don't know. I am intrigued. I feel like there is a world where they would have done, instead of 4 Canadians, 6, and they wouldn't have done a team pick'em. They would have just done Canadians versus Americans. Maybe that's a little too far to go for Tough as Nails. That's season 5. They start theming things, but maybe for season 6, if they choose to stay in Hamilton.
But who would be Savage Crew and who would be Dirty Hands in that case?
That's a great question. Who has the dirtier hands between Americans and Canadians? I feel like each nationality fulfills the criteria very differently.
Yeah. Okay. We could definitely explore that on a lengthier podcast. All right. So we got the introduction to our cast, and then also this was wild, Jess, that Phil got a cameo from, I want to play a video message from one of Hamilton, Ontario, Canada's most famous residents. Martin Short is here. Noted tough guy, Martin Short.
Well, we were looking this up before the podcast started. Who else could we have chosen from Hamilton? It's like Martin Short or Eugene Levy, and of them, who's the tougher one?
I think Eugene Levy.
It's a good question.
Yeah, listen, doing all that improv and all those Christopher Guest movies is one of the toughest things you can do as an actor.
Yeah, I love this. I loved it so much. Mike, how excited were you to see Martin Short on an episode of Tough as Nails?
I'm very glad. I mean, listen, my hot take that I've talked about when I've watched Only Murders in the Building is that I'm actually like not a huge fan of Martin Short in TV shows.
Mike, come on.
What?
What if he's listening?
His over-the-top energy is perfect for movies. It doesn't fit in when he's guest starring on TV shows. Only Murders in the Building is a fantastic exception. But I love, though, if you looked at the corner, this was very clearly a recorded Zoom call that they just cropped and put onto Phil's phone. And this is also something that we talked about, I think, on The Amazing Race last season, right, when one couple had to be evacuated due to COVID, of like Phil holding up his tiny screen in front of everybody, being like, all right, everyone, crowd around. We need to check out our Zoom call.
We had this with Phil's dad also in, was that last season of Tough as Nails. So, yeah, I love this as a new part of the show. And how do we think this happened? Is Phil friends with Marty Short?
I mean, who isn't Phil friends with at this point?
I guess so. I guess it could have happened one of two ways. Maybe Phil has a personal relationship with Marty Short. That's possible. Or I wonder also if in terms of like negotiating with Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, they said, oh, well, like, what if we got a call from our most famous resident, Martin Short?
Well, that is actually a good point, Rob, because I want to actually invoke Amazing Race Canada for a second here.
Okay.
And I don't know, maybe I'm just being inflammatory. Like if I keep talking about how great Amazing Race Canada is, maybe it will perk Phil's ears up and he'll come on here and like defend himself. But there was a season of Amazing Race Canada that filmed a leg of the race in Sudbury, Ontario. And very famously, Sudbury paid the show a stipend to film there and pulled out all the stops. Like they really gave them the list of like, here's all the places you could go that would be really awesome to showcase how great this town is. And we'll also get Sudbury's most famous son, Alex Trebek, to stand on the mat and greet people. And they could only afford him for about 3 hours. So a couple of the teams did not get to meet Alex Trebek because they were too late getting to the mat. But there is precedent there for a city to decide we want to host. It's almost like, here's what we can provide if we host the Olympics. It's like, here's what we can provide if we host Tough as Nails. We will include a Zoom call with Hamilton's favorite son, Martin Short.
Should they have done a Martin Short themed opening challenge? Like, you must shrink yourself a la Dennis Quaid and go inside Martin Short's body, or put yourself under
inner space. That's where that's your Martin
yourself
Short
in a Jiminy
touchstone.
Yeah, exactly. Put yourself under so many prosthetics and do the challenge.
We go Ed Grimley. And speaking of game shows, we get Ed Grimley. I'm sure that he is rocked by the news of Pat Sajak leaving Wheel of Fortune. I'm sure I would like to hear what his thoughts are on the matter, if I do say so myself.
Yeah,
they filmed this a while ago.
Yes. Did we have to do a follow-up Zoom call with Martin Short as Ed Grimley to get his reaction to Pat Sajak retiring? I'm honestly surprised that hasn't happened yet.
I just want to be clear that anybody that's been on Tough as Nails is welcome to come join us on the call.
Yeah.
And that includes Martin Short.
That's great. This was so fun. I love this. But anyway, all right. So we have our new Tough as Nails cast. Should we briefly run through the new cast?
Let's do it. I think we could sort of give any or sort of interspersing thoughts along the way that we've gleaned from them over the course of 2 hours. I will say this is a very fun cast as per usual, and I think adding Canadians into the mix was fantastic because I think it's an ability for them to tell some different stories and come from some different backgrounds as well.
All right, let's go. We got a slideshow here on the video. If you're just listening to the podcast, we've got the YouTube video here of this. And so let's welcome in. Okay, look, can't have Tough as Nails without firefighters. Here's Akila.
I love Akila. She's so intense and competitive. I love the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background.
I was going to say emphasis on fighter and firefighter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she just like punches the fire out. Or I guess it's jiu-jitsu, so she probably wrestles the fire to the ground.
Yeah, ground and pound is a little like stop, drop, and roll, right?
I guess so. Yeah, it all fits together somehow. But she has such intense energy. Like she's going to be a competitor for sure.
It is interesting that she said she's a black belt. I'm pretty sure she had a blue belt and it just got charred in the fire that she brought it into. So that's why it's a black belt by default.
Who can tell?
Okay. All right. Let's go to our next member of the cast. Okay. Here's Ben. He's going to be the leader of the Dirty Hands. I think probably feel like that after one episode, one of the favorites to win Tough as Nails season 5. What do we make of Ben?
Totally agree with you, Rob. I think as much as Tough as Nails likes to pride itself on diversity, not only in age, you're going to be talking about a season that a quarter of which are over 50, but also obviously, ethnic diversity, geographic diversity, etc. But the past 4 seasons, I think we found like a pretty typical mold for someone who tends to do fairly well in Tough as Nails, which is like a man in his 30s who is very physically fit and has a calm demeanor. And that is Ben to a T. I don't think it's a coincidence that he not only wins the first challenge, but then also wins the second individual challenge as well.
Yeah, this dude's got Big Murph energy for sure.
Big Murph energy. I mean, when are we doing the Big Murph energy merch? Because I feel like it's coming up a lot. He is a tile setter.
Yes, but also a former fisherman and a oil rig worker as well. So he's like, I guess if Kenji is the jack of all trades, he's like what, like the 8 of all trades, the 9 of all trades, if we're working up in terms of card metaphors.
Yeah. I think that maybe tile setter might be the least interesting thing he's done. So maybe they're like, can you talk about some of the other things?
Yeah, I want to talk about this thing that he's holding in this picture here.
Yeah, what is it? Can we zoom in? What is it?
What is it?
Enhance.
Enhance.
I assume this is
Enhance.
this is some kind of grout thing, because he is a tile setter.
Oh, see, I thought it was a giant thermos of coffee.
That's what I thought for a second too.
I
It's like
wouldn't
a really
want to drink
badass
out of a
thermos.
spiked thermos of coffee. That feels like that's just going to disincentivize you from drinking your coffee.
That's because you're not tough as nails, Mike. The other thing it looks like is it looks like the weapon that Alicia used to kill zombies on Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, could that just be like a really bad version of brass knuckles that he handmade himself?
Knuckles?
That don't actually go around his knuckles. Instead, he just kind of holds onto this spiked cylinder.
So this is going to be a really different season of Tough as Nails if we all had to bring a weapon.
Wow, this is the second time fighting
also,
is
I'm gonna give it-
hand combat.
Is Canada the international waters of reality TV? Anything goes. We could just have a brawl in the middle of the street for the final challenge.
Oh, look, you love to see it. Okay, all right.
The WWE themed leg of the Tough as Nails.
Right. I mean, if Elon and Mark Zuckerberg can have a fight, I don't know why we can't have it on Tough as Nails.
Oh, that'll be the next season's theme.
Yeah, my money is on the firefighters because they're going to have axes.
Okay, all right. There's Ben. Here's Carly. Okay, Carly the electrician. What do we think of Carly?
So Carly, it makes sense she's an electrician because she has like 1,000-watt smile, right? She is definitely the most perky, positive energy of the entire cast. And you love to see it. As much as the show is about being tough, it's nice to have someone like being very chipper the entire time, though. We'll see if that will break at some point over the course of the season.
Like a circuit. Okay. All right, let's see. Next up, we've got, oh boy. Carolina, quick exit from the individual competition for the motorcycle builder.
I just have to interject here. She is 42 years old.
I do not see it. Though I'm a little surprised. I just didn't recognize her without like her being under 4 feet of water at this point, considering that's unfortunately what I'm going to remember Carolina for. I feel like there's a meme of like, how I started my weekend with Carolina in the boat and then how I ended it with her swimming to the shore.
Well, there's that, it's like every Bugs Bunny cartoon where they're paddling the canoe and it just keeps like going underwater.
Yeah, the mogo of it all.
Yeah. So I'm looking at her. What does it say on her? I don't know what you would coverall.
Enhance.
Enhance. This looks like she has like her Twitter handle on there. It's interesting.
That's smart. That's good branding.
Good branding. Yeah. Okay. She loves welding. She doesn't love boats. We'll talk about it with Carolina. Doesn't love sod tractors, I think, either.
Yeah, right. I do wonder, is there like not trauma, I wouldn't go so far as, but do you think when people are eliminated from Tough as Nails, I guess the salve is a bit that they stay in the team competition, but do you think they're like, there's no way I'm getting near this type of thing again?
Yeah, I don't know how many algae fountains she's installing outside of Tough as Nails in her line of work, but she probably isn't going to love, working on that project. All right. Next up. All right. It's Cheryl. I love Cheryl.
I love the flamingos. This
Yeah,
is I feel like more Tough as Nails contestants should bring an animal mascot with them into the show.
yeah. Okay. That's her spirit animal. Cheryl is on she works in she carpentry.
Hmm.
She talked about working on a lot of different jobs, and she is now getting ready to retire.
Yeah, and apparently she's like having a backdoor farming plot, literally, considering
Mhm.
how good she was doing with the agrarian side of things. I absolutely love Cheryl as well. This is an indicator, again, of bringing in people with more life experience, that they sort of just have a lot more personality given the number of things they have done in their life. And I love her enthusiasm, pink flamingos and all, including, no offense to everyone else, had the best dress coveralls by far, right? That she custom decorated in the second challenge.
Mhm.
I loved that the flamingo decals that she stuck on her coveralls were actually repurposed rubber duck stickers
Yeah.
colored pink. This is resourcefulness, which is a key component of success on Tough as Nails, is being resourceful.
Yeah. All right. There's Cheryl. Who else we got here? Oh, Dustin. Okay, Dustin, he's the diamond in the rough. Got picked last. We commented before the show. He looks like he's going to space here in his profile picture. But he's another firefighter.
Yeah, I mean, specifically, he looks like he's going to space to blow up the asteroid from
Mhm.
Armageddon.
Yeah. And look, that is a tough as nails job if we ever heard one, Jess.
That's true. I think Ving Rhames would not be out of place on Tough as Nails.
Yeah, he
Mhm.
doesn't want to go into overtime because he doesn't want to miss a thing when it comes to the competition.
Exactly right.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but Dustin, I feel like, with no offense to Ben, he's probably the most Canadian of the Canadians. I do feel like he has that sort of drier tone that Jess is talking about. He has like the pseudo mullet going on. It's like a half mullet with a
Yeah.
little long hair in the back of
Got a
his
great
head.
look.
Yeah, and he's got the mustache, probably the most
Yeah.
unique facial hair we've ever seen on Toughest Nails.
Can I just do a quick aside that Ving Rhames came up? If that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I watched this on my DVR. I DVR'd it, and so I get all the commercials during Tough as Nails. So many commercials for the upcoming Mission Impossible movie.
Ah.
And boy, it's just so many commercials, and it's really just like long form commercials, and just like 5 minutes on like how Tom Cruise does his own stunts and like doing the motorcycle jump in the new Mission Impossible movies. And so it's just like, looks, come for the Tough as Nails, but stay for the making of Mission Impossible 7.
I mean, I feel like movie stuntman is a profession that has yet to be brought into Tough as Nails. I mean, I guess they unfortunately moved away from California. I feel like we could have done some Ethan Hunt-esque competitions. Free climb some rocks,
Mhm.
hang off the side of a plane as it's taking off, crash motorcycles into each other. They really left, some unfinished business back in the
Yeah.
States.
I just hope that after Tom Cruise drove that motorcycle off the mountain, that Carolina was standing by. Fix the motorcycle. It's just like a lot of like all of like the producers like, okay, hold on, Tom's gonna make the jump. Like if he's off course, this could be a major disaster.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I got to start watching the ads in your market, Rob, because all I got were like ads for cholesterol drugs.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe it was because I watched it on DVR. Maybe that's they did all of the like Paramount internal house ads for Mission Impossible. But okay, the movie stuntman would be a great spot on a future Tough as Nails season. Although Tom Cruise could just show up.
yeah, would he do his own cameo?
Do my
Phil, where's your couch? I gotta start jumping on it.
Okay.
You find yourself another co-host if Tom Cruise comes on Tough as Nails. I'm just putting
You're
that out
out
there.
You're out, Jess.
I refuse to watch anything that man is in.
Okay. All right. Well, there's Dustin, the firefighter. Okay, here's Jessica. Jessica had a lot of airtime here in episodes 1 and 2. Goes into OT, victorious. She's a remodeling contractor, but she's also been in the military as well. Okay. What do we think of Jessica?
Well, I gotta love her
Yeah.
because we got to stick together here. And I feel like Jessica's are getting represented very well on Tough as Nails. Certainly doing better than Mike's, I would say. Um, I love that she's a mom. I love that she's bringing the mom energy in a tough way,
Mm-hmm.
because that is a tough job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I like famously tough, I think.
Yeah, I think she's has the capacity to bring good TV as well. She even talked about this right off the bat of like, listen, I'm bossy. I run my own company with my family. So like I'm in charge of the household 24/7. And so I feel like her and Akila have the most to like, listen, we don't necessarily watch Tough as Nails for conflict, but we enjoy it when it comes as long as it's not in a completely toxic way. And I feel like Jessica is hot-headed enough to be able to bring that element to it.
Yeah. I don't know about you. There was one conflict in this 2 hours that I really loved that I can't wait to talk
Yeah,
about. But
same. I hope it's the same one.
okay. All right. Len, we have Kenji. I loved Kenji also.
Yeah,
Kenji was fun.
He has such a great story, right? Vietnamese immigrant who has just done so much with his life. What I'm intrigued with like him and Leah from a couple seasons ago is like, what's their current LinkedIn profile line? Like what do they currently do? They have done so much, but did
Yeah.
they pull what we should have said Ben should have
Well,
done and like
Mike,
gone with a previous job?
I'm going to hazard to guess a lot of the blue collar workers aren't on the LinkedIn. I feel like it's more of a white collar website.
I
Is that a
mean,
bad take? Is that a
it's not a bad take, Rob, but it's not something I didn't really go in. Like, they're Instagram users, so I just add them on Instagram. I don't go across all the platforms and add them anymore.
Yeah. But if I'm like looking to hire a contractor, I tend to not like hit LinkedIn first.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
what's his Angie's List profile look like?
Hmm. Yeah. All right. But here's Kenji, and yeah, I thought he really comes across great on the show. I thought he was really really fun. I liked his plans. They didn't always go great, but I liked the leadership.
Yeah, it sounds good on paper. Unfortunately, he ends up losing out by a hair just because he's too detail oriented. Is that like going to a job interview and it's like, my one weakness is that I care too much?
Hmm. It's definitely it can be something that is said in these types of interviews. All right. Okay. Let's go to Marcus. All right. Let's look at Marcus. Marcus, that I was floored. A grandpa of 3? What?
Yeah, there's another like something about being tough as nails keeps you young looking.
I mean, he's 49. Also, he's by far, I think, the tallest competitor. I mean, he barely fits in the picture frame right now.
Yeah, he's a CO2 technician.
Why do you need a drill for that?
Maybe you need to like keep it secure, like in a certain, like up against a wall or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It
Making-
seems like he's hauling around what he said, 500 to 600 pound tanks every day. Who needs that much CO2? Trees?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of uses for it, or maybe you're taking it out and putting it in the canisters.
Maybe.
Oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, there's too much CO2 in the air. Let me
You
suck
need
it
the-
out. Put it in
You
this
need the
canister.
drill to like drill holes in something to get the CO2 out.
Mm-hmm.
Or could it be like, I don't know, where he's from is like the #1 producer of Soda Streams. And so they want to keep that bubbly flowing by putting all the CO2 possible with these giant 500 to 600 pound tanks.
Honestly, at the amount of Soda Stream my household drinks, I would get a custom Soda Stream with one of those big tanks.
Wow. Okay. I've always wanted one, Jess. You like it?
Yeah, my husband likes it more than I do, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's fun.
Okay. All right. Marcus, yeah, not a ton of screen time, I feel like, in the first 2 hours of Tough as Nails, but I think we'll probably get to know him better as we go along.
Yeah, he seems fun.
Yeah, it seems like Phil, in talking with me, seems like Marcus tried to be a first name, last name person by Marcus Jones. We even hear him call himself that a couple times. So again, if we're talking about big merch energy, feels like he's trying to make his own brand, his full name.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. All right. Paul Hamilton. Now is Paul Hamilton, did we have to have him because we were in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, that we had to have that he was the perfect person to be here?
Yeah, did they name the town after him?
I don't know. I think they could have because Paul is pretty great. Mike, I had in my notes that I said, "Oh, Mike Bloom will do a Paul impression."
I guess I have to workshop it. Again, my range is very limited, but kind of feels like he's got this Nicolas Cage energy about him. Like he's kind of a wild man, but he's older as well, and he's got a really good handle on things. I have really good thoughts about Paul. I absolutely love him. I think he has, again, the perfect amount of energy, like Cheryl, like the next couple people we'll talk about as well, of like, hey, I've done a lot of shit in my life, so like, yeah, throw a reality show onto it, and I'm gonna have a good time. I'm absolutely gonna cut it up. And he also did pretty well for himself too, being one of the people to pick his team.
He did very well. He's also a cancer survivor. He gave great confessionals. So Paul is definitely one of my favorites here in Tough as Nails season 5. Jesse, you have thoughts on Paul?
I think Paul fits this niche, and there's a couple of them this season. I think he's one of these guys that's like, he's going to say something really funny every episode, and it's going to take us a beat to realize that it's a very funny thing. Like, it's kind of that Sergio energy from last season.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I had this in my notes where he's doing the power washing with Dustin, and they're getting sprayed with water, and I'm pretty sure he said, "I'm not made of chocolate, are you?"
Mhm.
And I had to stop, and I said, like, what in the Colby Donaldson is going on right now? Did Paul ask or state that he was not made of chocolate?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, somebody made of chocolate would do terrible on Tough as Nails.
In
I
that
mean,
heat, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing
mhm.
they don't shoot in Fiji.
Yeah. Um, hey, hey, Phil. My, I am made of chocolate, but you'd be surprised what a tough cookie I am.
The toughest job of all is to avoid all these hungry people chasing after me at any point in time.
The taste of victory
Mm-hmm.
is sweet, but not as sweet as me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could say I'm bittersweet.
Oompa loompa doompity doo. I've got a tough as nails season for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So Paul, he is not made of chocolate. He's made of
But
he's yes.
well, now I have to think. Like, if you have to say it, does that actually mean that you are? You know, is it the lady doth
Yeah.
protest too much and Paul is
Mm-hmm.
made of chocolate? He brought it up, not us.
Yeah. Really, I think that if you were going to be made of any sort of like confection, I feel like hard candy would be what you'd want to be for Tough as Nails.
Is that because it's just because Paul's old, Rob? You think he's made of Werther's
He's
originals?
Werther's original.
I think it's like that Laffy Taffy, like when it's been sitting in
Yeah.
the cupboard for too long and you can't get your teeth around it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
the best kind of candy to be on Tough as Nails.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going then to all right, here's Todd, the rival of
What a
Paul.
photo.
I love Todd. Todd looks like he finished third in a Jeff Foxworthy lookalike contest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
season of the stash on Tough as Nails.
Yeah. Todd looks like that in his downtime from being a tool maker, he also teaches high school social studies.
He looks like everyone my parents hung out with in the late 80s.
I love Todd so much. And Todd has like a really freaking awesome job. He's a tool maker. And so honestly, like he was a shoo-in to be one of the first picked, right? Considering how tools are used in literally every challenge. Yes, Todd may not perfect his skills around every one, but like you have to feel like he has a pretty good all-around base knowledge as to how all these tools are going to work.
Yeah. Mike, I see that Phil told you that he has a book, or he could write a book with all his Todd-isms. Did we get any Todd-isms in the first night?
I don't know. I think, unfortunately, Paul might have beat him out in that category as well. Just because I can't really think of any big Todd quotes
Yeah.
we've had.
I
Maybe it
think
comes up
maybe
later
the
on.
one was like, now you're really pissing me off. That was my favorite Todd-ism from
I think or
week
Todd saying, "I wake up every morning and I say, hello world, what have we got today?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Todd the Toolmaker should go pretty far here, I think, in this competition. Then who else we got? Oh, Yessie.
So Yessie is the youngest person this season at 31. So I feel like one of the tropes we usually get in Tough as Nails, right, which is like the young 20-something apprentice who is trying to learn on the fly and doesn't have nearly as much life experience compared to their competitors. Not on this season. We are 30 and above here.
I love that. You never see that on reality TV. I think it's great, and it's going to be refreshing. Like, there's nothing I hate more than like going into an Amazing Race season and like here's the old people that are complaining about arthritis and like oh my knees and my back, and I'm I gotta make my grandchildren proud, and it's like, oh, you're 5 years older than I am. Okay, great.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, tough as nails. Gen Z need not apply here in season 5.
Yeah, we got enough Riz here. We don't need Gen Z to come in.
If Tough as Nails goes on long enough, I feel like we are going to get some gimmick seasons in there. And one of them probably is going to be like youthful experience versus, or like, youthful zeal versus age and experience. And we'll have like the USA versus Canada season. We'll have the old versus young season.
I'd like to see some Gen Zs on here be like, we're going to kill this challenge. No cap, no hard hat.
For real. Okay. So did either of you think that they were going to do US versus Canada in terms of like once they start putting like, all right, and then for Canadians, put your Canada patch on your sleeve?
Was this in the contract to film in Canada? Like Canadians must announce themselves at all times?
Yeah. And I personally think, listen, Phil, we have had this conversation before. Why were the Canada patches not the same size as the badges of honor? I want big ass badges that they could stick on their chests to prove their heritage.
Yeah, I really thought that it was going to be, they were going to divide them that way of like, all right, secret Canadians, reveal yourselves. And then they put their patches on.
Here's a secret the entire time. Undercover Canadians have been in this cast the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to the legacy of the Dirty Hands and the Savage Crew, I think that might have been an interesting twist on this season of like who has the tougher work ethic, Americans or Canadians.
That's coming for Survivor, I'm sure.
I kind of feel like that maybe once upon a time that might have been a like thing, but I feel like I feel like that's not something that they would lean into on Survivor in the 40s.
Now, Dustin, tell me, when you spell flavor, do you spell it with the U in text?
All right. Then we have anybody else? Or that's it. Okay.
That's it.
Okay, that was it. All right.
Dirty Hands dozen.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and go through the tasks that we saw here in Tough as Nails season premiere, and we got to see the 500 pounds of metal challenge.
Is this now a thing, Rob?
I don't know.
We had a 500 pounds of concrete challenge that was very similar to this.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite things that they do on Tough as Nails is that I like when the challenges, there's like a strategic component to, so there's light metal, there's medium metal, and there's heavy metal. And then you could use the grinder to cut up the lightweight or the medium metal, but you have to use like a plasma torch to ultimately cut up the heaviest metal.
And I kind of respect Todd for being like, nah, F that. That's going to be too complicated. Let me just stick to the grinder of like, here are your two tools. Only use one of them. But Ben and Paul are going to prevail here. And good on Paul for saying, he's not necessarily good at cardio, but it's all about working smarter, not harder, which I feel like is another big tagline of Tough as Nails through 5 seasons.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's always the fun part of these challenges to see like what was the correct strategy to be using.
Yeah, it's like a Mensa puzzle. It's like you got it's like the thing with like the grain and the fox and the chickens and the boat. And there's one correct way to do it. And I think on Tough as Nails, theoretically, there's probably more than one correct way to do it, but there's always a way that works much, much better than everything else.
Yeah, Carolina's solution to that riddle is just sink the boat and swim across with everything.
Yeah. All right. So we went through our first metal challenge. Any other highlights from the first challenge that we want to mention here?
I mean, breaking. I like it when anybody breaks a tool. Like breaking off the saw blade in the middle of the metal and being like, well, that's not going to work.
Yeah. Do you think Todd loses a year of his life every time he watches a tool break, considering that's his life?
No, he just feels like I could have made that tool much better.
Yeah, that was poor craftsmanship.
Yeah, why didn't you
ultimately.
hire me in-house to make these for the challenge?
Yeah. All right. So ultimately, Ben is going to be the winner, and Paul is going to come in second, and they're going to end up drafting the teams for the Dirty Hands and the Savage Crew. Jess, if you were in this position, and then Phil asked you, "All right, are you going to take on the Dirty Hands or the Savage Crew?" What would you answer?
I think Savage Crew has had more legendary characters.
Mm-hmm.
If I want screen time, I'm definitely going to be Savage Crew. But Savage Crew is also usually the hot mess team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, do I want to just kind of fade into the background and be competent and try to get as far as I can? Or do I want to really be a star on this season?
Yeah. All right. Well, Ben says dirty hands, clean money. Got to go with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, but I guess I feel like we're already leaning into that a little bit.
Yeah. Was it that Savage Crew doesn't have a tagline, Mike? Is that really what's the issue here for Savage Crew not attracting Ben?
Yeah, do you think we need to put in a petition for a name change?
Oh, from Savage Crew? I mean,
Should we go like a Washington Commanders, Cleveland Guardians style of like Savage Crew is in the past. We need to rename this, rebrand.
um, look, maybe one day that could come
Or
to Tough as Nails.
maybe
Yeah.
we just need a similar catchphrase. We need like Savage Crew, Gentle Hearts.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like that a lot.
Yeah, that could attract some people. All right. So ultimately we get our draft here. Ben is gonna have the first pick. Goes Todd, number one overall. I think that was an interesting pick for number one.
I think it was perfect. I mean, this guy nearly beat Paul, right, to finish alongside him. And like I mentioned before, what I will say overall is great on Savage Crew because I thought after this pick, this was the most lopsided team draft in Tough as Nails history. Dirty Hands looks stacked with skills on paper. And I think part of that is bringing in somebody like Todd, where it's like, yeah, these challenges prove that you just don't need young, fit people. You need someone that can outthink the challenge, which Todd was able to do.
Okay. Jess, did you have the same read on how this draft goes?
I mean, I feel like the draft is not a hard thing to do because everybody finishes out the challenge. So you know what order they finished in. And you don't even have to play politics here. You can just be like, I'm going to pick the person that finished the highest in the challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't really get the read that it was so lopsided, but I don't think I've ever looked at the entire roster on paper yet.
Well,
I think I
go ahead.
did at first.
Yeah.
Like looking at them without having seen them compete, I think Mike might be absolutely right about this. But then it turns out that it's not as imbalanced.
Yeah, because specifically I look at Ben, Todd, Kenji, and Cheryl, who I think are four people with by far the most experience out of the entire cast, and they're all on the same team. Plus, you have Carly and you have Yessie, who are both younger but certainly not slouches. And I thought, like, okay, this is an absolute wallop this season. So good on Savage Crew for like not only winning the first challenge but making it close on the second one as well. It seems like, well, maybe things play out differently on paper. I just thought that from a like competency and background experience, Ben really stole the draft, in my opinion, by getting Todd and Kenji 1 and 2.
Okay. Well, now that we have our teams, Tough as Nails, they always do 2 hours of premiere. And so it's always, all right, we draft our teams and then you go right into a challenge with your teams. And so we're going to bring out Rick Heddle. And so Rick Heddle, he's got a family business where you can go to his shipyard and power wash your boat.
I love how Phil says, the quiet part out loud of, I don't know why I'm welcoming you to your own business, but isn't television a funny thing?
Yeah. Here's Rick. And so Rick it wasn't one of the bigger personalities that we've ever seen from the people that Phil brings in.
Well, this had the energy of he had a line there and he missed his cue, and Phil is like vamping to cover up the fact that he missed his line of like, welcome to my shipyard.
Yeah, he lets Phil dry dock, certainly.
Yeah. Maybe that this is going to be a theme that we're going to see where maybe like the local like LA like people who run shipyards and like all of these different mills that we go to, maybe they're like a little bit more like TV ready in terms of like all of the production they may have seen over the years.
Exactly. They're camera ready. And unfortunately, these Canadians, they're still warming up to it. It takes a lot for them to warm up here. Maybe he was also just thrown off by Phil's pronunciation of algae.
Yeah. Well, I always question when I hear somebody say something differently. I'm like, am I saying it wrong? Algae, I think Phil said.
I think that's a New Zealand thing.
Yeah.
And the reason I think it's a New Zealand thing is because you have Jermaine Clement in Moana talking about bioluminescent algae.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an Antipodian thing.
Okay. Power wash the boat. We're also gonna then replace the tires on the side of the boat and then paint the boat. Okay.
Yep, straightforward. Did either of you have to Google why they have tires on the boat?
Well,
No.
they mentioned it, right? So it's that
Yeah.
when they, come to dock, that they're not grinding up metal on wood, that they have a little bit of a buffer.
And
Yep,
just maybe a few months ago, I might have needed to do that. But in the last few months, I've been podcasting a little show called Below Deck: Sailing Yacht. And I feel like in almost every single episode that those tires on the side of the boat come in very handy because it seems like there's a lot of, in terms of like docking the boat, you're fitting these boats into like very tight spaces.
Or maybe it's just that the people on Below Deck Sailing Yacht are bad at parking.
That's true. That has come up very, again, I don't know a lot about sailing the yachts as opposed to like when it's not Captain Glenn doing it. So I don't know exactly what's going on.
Oh, so is it like the bumpers you put up in bowling, but for boats?
Yes.
Kinda.
Yes. Also, that boat on Below Deck Sailing Yacht needs a lot of power washing.
Inside
everywhere.
as well as outside.
Yeah, the algae is the least of their problems over there.
Oh, God.
Could use some paint also, I think, too. All right. So everybody goes to work. We hear Kenji's plan that he like has a very like a detailed plan of who's going to do what. Seems pretty good. Jessica, though, that she's no slouch. She's going to be the boss of Savage Crew. She kind of gets like drafted into being the leader. It's like, Jessica, you do it.
No,
like,
I love
really?
Both times Carolina's like, I think you should do it. And I love that energy of like, I think you should probably take care of it. I mean, now, unfortunately, Carolina will probably have to step up given the fact that she can only participate in the team challenges. But I really respect that energy of being like having the gumption to not necessarily step up, but be able to call someone else out to step up.
Well, and we see Jessica do this as well, which is one of my favorite moments of this half of the premiere, is she assigns herself a task, realizes she's going to be super bad at the task, and then immediately calls someone else in to do it for her instead of like sitting there messing around with it. I think the self-awareness to know I'm going to suck at this, someone else needs to do it. I think that's a fantastic component of problem solving. It's one of the fun things about watching this show.
All right. This is pretty close, right?
Yeah, I think if I'm to believe Kenji's narrative, essentially what happens is Dirty Hands initially gets the lead when, as Jess mentioned, Jessica has a tough time figuring out the rigging system, but Savage Crew is able to overcome it when they're perhaps a little less OCD when it comes to making sure every single element is power washed. And so they're able to overpower wash, perhaps, Dirty Hands, take the lead, and end up winning the first challenge.
Yeah, I feel like that this is a trope on Tough as Nails where, it's like, oh, Savage Crew. Oh, wait, their thing is not dry enough. They have to go back. They have to do it again. Savage Crew is in a lot of trouble. Savage Crew wins.
It's the Amazing Race trope, right? Like if a team is in trouble before the commercial break, and then when they come back, it's going to be totally fine. It's manufactured drama for an ad break.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing happened also in the second challenge also. I'm sorry, the same thing happened in the overtime where it was like, oh, wait, Carolina, she's not out of this. Jessica's in trouble. Jessica wins.
Yeah, there's never a total blowout on Tough as Nails. It's always neck and neck, even when it's maybe
I thought
in
the
real life
OT might have been a blowout.
I don't know. It seemed like Carolina caught up, though, to a point that Jess often makes on our Amazing Race podcast. We never saw the two of them in the same frame at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, not to get there, but I mean, Carolina like sunk her boat. That swim. I think
Yeah, I was
We'll
like,
get
I'm
to
pretty sure.
this.
I don't know, unless Carolina is a secret Michael Phelps, unless she pulls out the Michael Phelps sticker and puts it on her arm and we didn't realize it the entire time. I don't know
Mhm.
how she can outswim a canoe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, Savage Crew, they are our first winners here of the team competition. So that's the end of the first hour of Tough as Nails.
Yeah, Paul said he looks at his team as a full house. I wonder who he thinks is who.
Are we doing it? Are we doing it? Yeah. All right. So Paul feels very good about his team overall. And so we come back for episode number
Sorry,
2.
I just have to say Carolina's Uncle Jesse because she works on motorcycles.
That's true. That's true. We've never had an exterminator like Jessica Liese in his early days.
Yeah, Nora Rock musician who charted #1 in Japan.
Mhm. Okay, so then we end up going to some sort of like a soil factory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A mulch plant.
Yeah, mulch plant. And so, all right, so soil, they call it black gold. So many microorganisms in there. Big business, apparently, soil. I personally, I could relate to how it is here on the soil factory because so that, much like at the soil factory, I insist to all the podcasters, like, okay, you overfill the bag, okay? People, they think they're getting one thing. No, overfill it. I want that podcast filled to the brim so you can barely close it.
Well, would you say that this program we are recapping right now, is overfilled?
With too much Phil Keoghan?
Too much Phil Keoghan. Never enough.
No,
Never enough. The
Never
bag
enough.
is limitless. It's bottomless at this point. But
Yeah.
before we go to the challenge, can we just break down one of Carly's quotes here?
Yeah.
You don't have to be Lucky Charms. Sometimes you have to be Captain Crunch.
You don't have to, okay. So and the context is like that the crunch part of it is like the hard work.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out, is Captain Crunch the toughest cereal? I guess it is because it infamously cuts up the roof of your mouth, right?
Yeah, we're gonna rip up the mouth of this task.
No, the toughest cereal is grape nuts. That is the crunchiest cereal. That is the hardest to chew.
But it doesn't hurt your mouth the way
maybe
Captain
it
Crunch
refers to just the work ethic of the famous seafaring Captain Crunch. That
they should have brought him on instead of Rick Heddle. He would have hit his mark for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's notoriously a tough boss.
Is he though? I feel like he's always very jolly and avuncular. I feel like he's a secret softie.
I don't know. Captain Crunch feels like he'd get Me Too'd in a different universe.
Oh, Mike, why do you have
There are no women on his crew, are there?
For a reason.
I don't know. How dare you, Mike? I mean, I'm just looking at the captain. Again, we are way off track, but let's go there. Okay, so here he is.
This is Mike's fault. I just want the record.
Yeah.
To know.
I mean, he's celebrating 60 years in the cereal business, Captain Crunch. He salutes you, which I like. I mean, looks like a pretty tough guy. I mean, Lucky Charms. I mean, the little lucky leprechaun. He's not a hard worker.
No, he's lucky. I think that's the point. It's like you can have luck on your side, or you can crunch through it and create your own luck.
Yeah. Who is the hardest working cereal mascot?
Cookie Crook.
Trix Rabbit.
Well, Trix Rabbit, is hardworking to try to filch his own cereal for himself. So I suppose he is tough.
Yeah, at this point he could get a job and buy his own cereal, but he prefers to expend extra energy trying to steal it.
Oh, you know what? Maybe Barney Rubble for Fruity Pebbles, because he also undergoes a bunch of schemes to try to get Fred cereal.
Yeah, they do work at a quarry also, so I think that's also possible.
Barney Rubble would be perfect on Tough as Rocks.
All right.
Bedrock.
Now that all the Tough as Nails fans have left, let's talk about this challenge. This was an interestingly structured challenge of basically there were 2 different phases that you switched off after 30 minutes. And so you had to fill giant bags, but then also fill smaller bags. And it seemed like, was the scoring equal of like, it was going to be like the total number of bags? I kind of feel like the giant bag should have been worth more points.
Yeah, I think it was just to make it fair, like the total across both. It reminds me a bit of, remember that old Survivor challenge where for the first half you like built a tunnel with knots
Yeah.
and planks, and then the second half they had to undo it. Where I think it's just that they didn't have enough equipment on hand for both teams to run the challenge at the same time, so they essentially had them switch off.
Yeah. But I did feel like in terms of like scoring the challenge, I felt like that just, am I off base here? That I feel like the big bags should have been worth like double. I feel like you could have just like loaded up on the small bags.
Well, I think people assumed that it was going to be like two totals.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say,
Yeah.
but I would guess that they probably, if somebody had gotten like 25 small bags and one big bag, and the other
Mm-hmm.
team had like 10 big bags and 5 small bags,
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing an SAT math question here,
Right.
clearly.
We're in real golden snitch territory, right? Of like, well, just go for the one thing, the rest of it doesn't matter.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Yeah.
guess they probably calculated it on like total gross tonnage, but
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know for sure. I think it was probably pretty obvious who had gotten the most bags at the end of it, and if it had come into question, they might have brought out a more complicated rubric.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very happy that Dirty Hands was luckily able to win by a couple bags, because if they had lost by one bag, Ben would be kicking himself all the way back to Nova Scotia.
All right, well, let's talk about some highlights from the soil challenge here. I think that my favorite part was where we saw it was Aquila was just getting covered in the dirt, trying to fill up the bags.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
every time dirt fell out of that machine and did not go in a bag, I don't know why I thought that was as funny as it was.
well,
Mhm.
because it was so counterintuitive, right? Because it seems like there were two spouts. You try to hold the bag wide between both. For some reason, Savage Crew decided they were going to hold the bag underneath one and then just shovel the dirt that is accumulating from the other open spout with the other people, while unfortunately Aquila has to take a soil shower.
Yeah.
I don't know why you can't
Not
use
great.
2 bags at once.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's 2 spouts, you should have 2 bags.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe you couldn't do that.
Savage Crew just, I'm honestly surprised a bit that they only lost by a couple bags, because it seemed like from our perspective they really biffed it on the big bags.
Mhm.
Hot mess team. They're wearing
Yeah.
orange.
Oh, that's the
thing.
tradition. That's the legacy. The hot mess team. All right. So Cheryl gets the Dirty Hands the victory. Then they even it up. We're 1-1 in the team phase of Tough as Nails. And we're gonna head into our individual challenge. And twist. We're gonna pair up for the first time in the first challenge, first individual challenge. And just I kind of like this. I feel like that we got like amazing race teams.
Yeah, I love it when people pair up, and I love the process of pairing up too. I
Mhm.
love that they have to like make overtures like they're asking someone to prom,
Mhm.
and they have to make the case why they would be really good. And then of course at the end, you can tell there was like a little bit of behind the scenes cajoling, like, well, everybody just asked the first person. The first person always said, yes, we need to make this more dramatic.
Yeah.
So you need to have one contestant pursued by 2 suitors.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's going to be Aquila. She's in the love triangle right now with Cheryl and Kenji at this point. I really enjoy this as well, especially because it is a little bit of a hot mess of like, as they vocalize, we barely know these people. And I think as a result, it led to much more inner team picking as well. Like Dustin picking Ben, being like, yeah, there's next to no chance that we'll ever work together at any point in time this season because we're on opposite teams. So like, let's take an opportunity now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I felt like that all of the teams almost kind of had like a theming to them, like they were teams on The Amazing Race. And really, I feel like that it started off with Carly and Yessie. I feel like that they were like, okay, we're the 2 tough women here, and that's going to be our team. And then Ben and Dustin are like, we're the Canadians. We're gonna be our own team. And Jen and Carolina felt like an Amazing Race team. And then we've got the team old guys.
Yeah, which teams of these 6 do you think would do the best on The Amazing Race?
That's a good question. I think I like the
Not Paul and
Canadian
Todd.
team.
Yeah.
I like Team Canada on Real Amazing Race.
Mm-hmm.
I would fear if Carolina and Jess ever did a challenge that was in the water.
Yeah.
We're going to get to this. I have a lot of thoughts on that challenge.
Okay. All right. So we had to go this was kind of a complicated task. Okay. So you had to like ride the sod tractor and then roll up the sod. And then, first you had to operate that machine. And then you had to get all of your sod like onto the forklift. And then there was a little bit of a race against the clock. You were in heats. Mike, what'd you think of this first individual / pairs challenge?
Is it weird to say those sod rolls looked pretty delicious?
I could definitely see those as like in the Great British Baking Show. Of,
yeah, like very reminiscent of Swiss rolls.
It makes you want the yodels.
Yeah, at the very least, I could see it on the new season of Is It Cake?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just slicing through. That's the big twist. You don't know which ones are cake and which ones are sod.
You have to eat whichever one you cut.
I really liked this challenge. I agree. At initial conceit, it was a little strange. And again, because of equipment limitations, they were going in paired heats. So there was an automatic winner and loser, but you may not be the overall winner and loser. But it did what it was meant to do, which is producing natural drama between these two people when one's in front driving, the other person's in the back trying to roll the sod. And it's a very loud machine, so they can barely communicate with each other.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the friction going on between Paul and Todd, which we thought we were going to get along famously, but Jess, rivalry brewing.
Rob, is this the conflict
you
wanted?
Course,
Yeah,
of course
it was. Okay.
I don't think there was any other conflict in the show.
There was some yelling, but I think
Akila and Kenji were very loudly talking to each other, but that might have just been, again, the machinery.
Yeah. So I love this moment of they pick each other because they seem like they're the most similar, and then it's like they start unspooling, start to play this 4-dimensional chess, oh, did he pick me because he's going to tank me and throw me into the bottom and I'm a threat? And it's like, that's not the show you signed up
Todd,
for.
you're spiraling. Get it together.
Spiraling just like the sod.
Yeah, you should be spiraling the sod, not your brain.
Yeah.
But then he did. No, he wouldn't do that. That wouldn't happen.
Because we're not on Survivor. We're on Toughness.
But Paul was certainly proving that he has an unconditional way of doing things, considering at one point he's just serpentine, zigzagging around, picking up as much sod as possible.
Doing donuts in the forklift.
Yeah, that was great. That was one of the best parts. Then what went wrong for the team of Jen and Carolina?
It looked like
other than not getting their sod where it was supposed to be on time.
I mean, that was the problem, right? I think Carolina didn't know how to use a forklift, and so she's like, great, I'll load the pallet. How do I load this? And by the time Jess could run over and talk her through how to do it, the time it expired.
And this is interesting to me because I thought, and maybe it's because they're in Canada, because I don't know what it's like in Canada, but my impression is that you need to have a special license to operate a forklift. And if you're showing somebody on TV driving a forklift, they have to have that license. This was a thing.
We've had forklift challenges before on Toughness Nails.
This was a thing that came up on Penn Jillette's podcast. Penn and Teller did a thing where they had to drive a forklift on stage, and the stagehands were very clear, you have to go get this special forklift license if you're even going to be anywhere near the forklift.
Yeah. I don't know. I know they've gotten around this in the past, but maybe that does potentially, I don't know if Canada has, I wouldn't be surprised either way if Canada has more strict regulations in terms of that, or it feels like, we had less regulations.
Common sense forklift legislation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Which I have been advocating for years here on this podcast.
I know it's one of your hot button issues, Rob.
Yeah. The only way to beat a bad guy with a forklift is a good guy with a forklift.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Well, the bad guys with forklifts, they're just taking everything.
Yeah, it's so easy.
Yeah.
So, was Paul a bad guy with a forklift?
No, Paul's a good guy. Paul's a good guy.
He's just having a good time. He's going for a bit of a joyride. He's like, I'm not going to use a forklift for a long time. I mean, he is probably the one who has the most experience with it, right? Considering he's a maintenance supervisor in a warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he definitely knew how to get that around the tight curves.
Yeah. We also had the great moment in the challenge where Cheryl was raging against the machine. And then, the Toughest Nails sound design crew, they always like come in with, we get sort of like the stock music, Rage Against the Machine riff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I loved it considering it was a 50-something-year-old woman wearing a flamingo Hawaiian shirt just going to town on this hopper.
Yeah. Fork you. I won't do what you told me. Okay. All right. Ultimately, we get the win for the team of Dustin and Ben, and Carolina and Jessica are headed to OT number 1.
All right.
Uh-oh. All right. So, all right, this is kind of a wild challenge. Usually I feel like that the OT tasks, I feel like are a little bit more straightforward, but we have these algae shooting fountains.
Algae.
You have to like build the fountain and then
Mhm.
get in the boat, and then in true Tough as Nails fashion, there's a hole in the boat, Mike.
Yeah, I know that this is a new thing in true Tough as Nails fashion. We've purposely encumbered your journey.
This seems totally antithetical to the entire
Yeah.
spirit of Tough as Nails. Am I wrong?
Right. It's like Tough as Nails fashion. It's like, okay, there's a hole in your boat, which you'll need to patch before getting into the water.
Did they say you couldn't patch the hole?
I don't know. Maybe could you stick one of your tools like through the hole in the boat?
Oh, that's true. Or you could be like the girl with the dam, right? Just stick your finger in the hole the entire time.
Yeah.
Well, then you need both hands to install the thing, though, I feel. But could you?
Toe.
Yeah, put your toe in the hole.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like I don't know how if maybe that was like sort of like the work smarter, not harder aspect of it that neither Jessica or Carolina arrived at.
It's just so odd. I totally agree. It's like if they did the partner challenge and it's like in true Tough as Nails fashion, you could only see out of one eye the entire time. Like this is not equivalent to what people experience on the workforce.
Yeah, in true Tough as Nails fashion, your arms and legs will be bound together.
Okay. Jess, we're here. You said you had a lot to say about how this challenge went down, the OT.
Yeah, I just think putting a hole in the boat, like that's just humiliating. This is really, it's mean. It's like, okay, you put together the thing and install the thing and get in the boat, and we learn how something works that we didn't know how it worked before. That's all Tough as Nails. I just think it's like, do it all in a leaky boat. We're pointing and laughing, and we're supposed to be a show about like learning new things about each other and inclusiveness and supporting each other.
Interesting.
And this is just like we're throwing a wrench into it that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
Literally. Like, is this an exciting? Maybe they didn't think this was an exciting challenge without an extra layer of difficulty.
Yeah, I don't know. Did they expect Carolina to tip her boat so much that she decided to swim back with everything?
Yeah, and maybe this is a new aspect of the OT of trying to like make it like a little bit more of, I don't want to say sadistic, but like having like some sort of like a perversion to like this otherwise like normal type task. Okay, here's the wrinkle in the OT. They were basically like, what's the Squid Gaming of the Tough as Nails OTs?
But it does not need to be Squid Gamed. I feel like let people make those things themselves. Like let those problems arise organically, because in the real workforce, this stuff comes up all the time. You don't need to create it.
Jess, are you saying in a new era CBS reality show, we shouldn't be throwing in random disadvantages to keep players on their toes?
I mean, I'm not saying that.
All right. Well, let's get into what we have with Carolina and Jessica. And so I could relate to this challenge a little bit because just to go back to my own reality TV days, okay? Picture it. Day 31, Survivor the Amazon. We have a reward challenge for the loved one's visit from home. And so in the task that there was a point where you would like had to dig in the sand and find an ore. And then after that, 4 people would find an ore. And then there were 4 rowboats that you would use the oar to get across in the canoe to get across a large body of like infested water to get to the
Now
other.
that's
No
tough
holes
as
in the boat.
nails.
No holes in the boat, but it was rather easy to tip the canoe if you didn't know what you were going to do. And so I was one of the 4 people, found an oar, got into the water, instantly tipped my canoe, went back and like flipped it over and then got it working. Whereas Jenna and Christy both tipped the canoe and then attempted to swim the body of water, which seemed highly dangerous. I don't know if anybody should have stepped in at the time, but I can tell you that the people that were in the boat, they were a lot faster than the people that decided to swim the body of water.
Yeah, I guess the other question is, was there anything given to them to allow them to bail water out of
They had a
the
bucket.
boat?
They had a bucket.
They had a bucket? Okay, yeah. So
Yes.
maybe it was just a matter
Not
of...
in Survivor the Amazon. Not in Survivor the Amazon. They
Okay.
here in this, we had a bucket.
Yeah, they had a matter of just weighing out like, okay, do I try to install this thing or do I take time to try to bail the water out of my own sinking boat?
How deep was that water? Did they ever say?
In what show?
Not on your show, Rob.
Okay,
On the other
yes.
show.
I don't think it was that deep because I think that like I think probably it was like at least in the diagram that they gave, it didn't appear to be like it was super deep.
Yeah, I don't know if that diagram was to scale. If it's
Mhm.
10 feet deep, the boat becomes more important. But I feel like maybe the play is just get the boat to the middle of the water and then get out of the boat and stand in the water and build the thing.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know if they
interesting.
could stand in the water, which would have been a nightmare of like having to tread water while simultaneously installing this aerator at the same time.
Yeah, any
Yeah.
water polo players on Tough as Nails this season?
Yeah. Also, in terms of like standing in the water, I don't think that Carolina is necessarily Marcus, if you know what I mean.
Good point.
Yeah. Okay. Ultimately, we're told it gets very close. But ultimately,
told
it's
that.
going to be Carolina who's going to punch out and be the
Yes.
first person out of the individual part of the competition.
She tipped her canoe and Tyler too, and unfortunately Carolina's first out.
Mm-hmm. All right.
It's a deep pull, Bloom.
Yeah, like 1850s pull.
All right. Any other thoughts on the first 2 hours of Tough as Nails?
I really enjoyed Jessica, but can I bring up a quote before OT that also got me a little cocky in my head,
Yes.
a la Lucky Charms and Captain Crunch? She says that it's all about the legacy that she wants to leave, and she wants her kids and her grandkids to talk so highly about her. It feels like a different vocalization than other people that are like, I'm doing this for my fiance, I'm doing this for my children. Jessica kind of sounds like she wants a statue erected of her after she leaves this plane of existence of like, it's all about the legacy I leave.
Yeah, and what she doesn't know is that in 5 years, Paramount Plus is just going to yank all seasons of Tough as Nails off the service,
Mhm.
and nobody will ever get to watch it again.
Well, got to make room for more Mission Impossible movies, Jess.
Clearly.
So we'll see if Jessica can bounce back from this. Do we know offhand, like, what is the history of people who end up in the first OT victorious? Is it sort of just like avoiding the inevitable, or have we seen players be able to come back from this type of adversity?
I think we tend to see people. There's always somebody every season who ends up in OT over and over and over.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they keep on squeaking by, but eventually, it catches up to them.
I don't believe we've ever had someone who went to the first OT in the final 3, let alone win. I think we've had someone finish in like 4th place. But still, the thing about OTs and about these competitions in general is that they are so varied that your bad day could come today, but your good day might come tomorrow. We saw last season that, to Jess's point, like, yes, there might be some people that consistently finish in the bottom, but I feel like last season in particular, like everyone in the top 6, I want to say, all went to OT at one point and survived. So hopefully we go more towards that, because just watching the same person go to the bottom over and over again gets a little repetitive at times.
Unlike Carolina in the water. Yeah. All right. So this could be a little bit of a extenuating circumstances for Jessica, where this was a team challenge. And so it's not necessarily like that this was, okay, Jessica demonstrated that she's going to be like a bottom 2 finisher in an individual competition. So maybe we have like a little bit more hope for her to be able to bounce back and go far in the competition.
If we're reading the edit, I don't know if you can read a Tough as Nails edit the same way you can read an edit on another show, but I think she is someone that she ends up sticking around for a good while longer. Like the way she's being set up is kind of one of the narrators of the season. I think we might see her in the bottom 2 a couple more times, but I think she sticks around for a while.
Okay. Mike, any other thoughts on Tough as Nails week 1?
Nah, it was a very fun way to bring the show back. Again, a couple of little sticking points with the challenges to the points that Jess brought up, but by and large, I enjoyed this cast. I think incorporating both the location and the people of Canada was not only a great choice, but one that I think played really nicely into the dynamic of this cast, who are willing to have both like high energy quips as well as perhaps some possible conflict as well, or certainly speak their mind. So I'm excited as the competition gets more intense, and especially that team challenge becomes more high stakes with more and more people getting eliminated. I'm ready for, some things to fly and for some things to, people to get wound up in the role of those sod spirals and to see exactly where things go over the very short month that we're going to be talking about Tough as Nails in a very truncated format here, hot and heavy.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be back on next Monday to cover the Friday night and Sunday night episodes 3 and 4, respectively, of Tough as Nails. Jess, anything else that you want to add?
I got nothing, Rob. I think it's a fun show, and I'm privileged to get to cover it here with the 2 of you.
Oh,
100%.
well, yeah. Couldn't agree more. Jess, what is going on for you in other podcasting ventures?
Well, Rob, it is feast or famine for me in the podcast department right now. I've got a lot going on.
You're eating.
You're devouring all the Captain Crunch, all the Lucky Charms.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I'm full on, like, just housing all the cereal, all the serialized episodes of television entertainment. One of the things that I'm doing is over on Post Show Recaps, I am talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds with this gentleman right here, Mike Bloom.
Yes.
And we had a very Canadian episode last week, so I feel like we're very on theme. And we did get a couple of people tweeting at us to tell us we were wrong about Canada, so I feel like that's also on brand. And we'll just continue that Canada trend with Amazing Race Canada, which is starting up this week, and Dan Heaton and I will be back to cover that. And then, of course, because what is Walking Dead will never die. We are still covering Walking Dead Dead City over on Post Show Recaps with AJ Mass and Chappelle, sometimes Josh Wigler and myself, and we talk about what is actually shaping up to be a very good season of television. So I recommend you check all that stuff out.
Yeah, I had heard that you were high on Dead City.
I am very high on Dead City. It is, it's just refreshing to have a show where you look at something and you think that's a plot hole. They're not answering that question. Why aren't they answering that question? And then 2 episodes later, they answer that question. Like every loose end gets tied up. Like how great is that? That never happens on TV anymore.
Do you feel like that the changing of location for the Walking Dead brought some rejuvenation to the series and that maybe Hamilton, Ontario, Canada will bring big results to Tough as Nails?
I mean, if we see people ziplining between rooftops or like wearing a motorcycle helmet with a saw blade sticking out the top.
I mean, Carolina might be the closest to it.
Yeah, she might be able to make such a thing, or she needs to get together with Todd the Toolmaker and get the saw blade motorcycle helmet going.
Yep. Okay. Jess, great job here. Week number 1. Mike, what's coming up for you?
Lots of scripted stuff as well. So in addition to Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I am covering The Witcher and Battlestar Galactica with Josh Wigler. Just finished Silo, which was actually a very blue collar-esque show on Apple TV Plus, mystery box show that focused on an engineer, a mechanical engineer, like Carolina's parents as the main character. But that was a really fun podcast and show alongside Dr. Amanda. I'm also covering some Star Wars stuff as well, watching Star Wars Rebels for the first time, and certainly more stuff to come. And I talk about it all on social media at a Mike Bloom type, as Twitter is slowly accumulating more holes in the boat that is sinking over the course of the past few weeks.
Yeah. All right. Well, of course, you can check out everything that I'm doing over on Rob Has a Podcast at robhasawebsite.com. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast feeds, including our dedicated Tough as Nails podcast feed, which you can get at robisawebsite.com/subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.